Hello everyone, my name is Vivian Lim, and the title of my explainer video is Positionality and Intersectionality. Just to give a bit of an overview of what I will be covering today, first of all, we will start with what is positionality and intersectionality. Then we will move on to what are some of the marginalized communities affected by this, and how they are affected, followed by an overview of what my community partner is and my experiences with them. Finally, I will cover unity or solidarity and how we can practice it. Positionality refers to how differences in social position and power shape the identities of individuals, thus affecting their access to society. It is crucial to understand that one's role in society has been culturally ascribed or generally regarded as being fixed. In most cases, these are things such as gender, race, skin color, and nationality. Although things such as political views, personal history, and experiences have also begun to shape one's identity. Regardless, it is important to recognize our identities and lived realities as they can create biases on how we interact and view the world in our communities. Intersectionality refers to the understanding of how aspects of a person's social and political identity combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. It shows us that social identities work on multiple levels. This could result in unique experiences, barriers, or even opportunities for some people. Therefore, oppression cannot be reduced to only one part of an identity. Each oppression is dependent on and shapes the other. This is challenged by social injustice and structural oppression. As society has designed groups to better identify this oppression, those groups being dominant and subordinate groups. Those falling in the subordinate or lesser group find that their unique identities have now created a new form of discrimination. Racism, sexism, classism, just to name a few, thus resulting in a lack of privilege and social inequality. While those falling in the dominant group continue to excel in society as they are not seen as lesser because they are granted many opportunities and do not have to go through social barriers like the subordinate group does. This simply results in privilege, which is not only present for the white community, but can sometimes also be seen in others too. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this wheel as it visually displays the different aspects of positionality or our identities and how each aspect results in how much power one has access to. For example, a US male citizen who speaks English, is heterosexual, and has attended college or university has a lot more power than a dark-skinned, able-bodied woman who speaks English, identifies as gay, and has only received a high school education. This reflects on how much labels can affect an individual's ability to succeed in our society. Now, I want to address two types of communities that are affected by individualistic positionality and intersectionality. Those being those being immigrants and BIPOC communities. They're what I think are the most underrepresented and underappreciated minorities. There are so many misconceptions about immigrants, such as they are outsiders. They are people who illegally come to our country, or in other words, undocumented. And most frequently, that they are carriers of diseases. This can also be said for BIPOC individuals. Before that term was created, people usually just referred to them as colored people, Black, Asian, African American, and the list goes on. They were mainly seen as thieves, criminals, or troublemakers, simply because their identities as a person or of color or belonging to a specific race. Although this perspective changes once a person has understood their own positionality and intersectionality, these terms are then subject to change alongside society's perspective of them. Instead, immigrants are those who have escaped violence in the form of religious violence or war-related conflicts, have wanted to pursue better education and better opportunities, or to simply reunite with families. Alongside this is the creation of the term BIPOC. It was created to battle against systemic racism. As we discover the importance of positionality and intersectionality, we discover that the BIPOC community are powerful, influential, and help to create a diverse and equal society. Now I want to address how these marginalized communities are affected by positionality and intersectionality, and how these topics stack on top of each other. First of all, it is education. A student's physical identity, gender, skin color, or race can impact their access to a quality education because they are subject to institutionalized racism. This means that most BIPOC students have experienced unfair policies or institutional practices that have negative impact on their growth as a student. Alongside this, these policies or rules are mainly implemented on BIPOC students, instead of an equal distribution of policies for white students as well. This then impacts occupation, or simply their jobs in the future. Many BIPOC adults suffer from many types of occupational inequalities. To be more specific, they've experienced wage theft, being exploited for work, and having to work undue hours and being underpaid. These are all due to the positionality that society has that BIPOC adults cannot be given higher paying jobs unless they gain an education. So to make ends meet, they are subjected to horrible occupational injustices, leading to housing. After being given unfair education and being exploited by the working class of our society, many BIPOC adults struggle with housing, either living in poverty, being homeless, or even barely making ends meet for a one-bedroom apartment for a family of four, all because they were unable to obtain a proper education and they were being cheated of their wages. This then leads into a generational issue. All these topics stack on top of each other, which causes a cycle of poverty in the BIPOC community. Adults are unable to provide an adequate education for their children, which means their children are unable to obtain high quality jobs to pay off family debt, thus resulting in a generational cycle of poverty, as each problem is simply passed on to the next generation. Now I want to talk about my community partner. My community partner is Benicia Valley, and their mission is to uplift student achievement and to ensure that students receive an empowering education. They have high expectation and skillful individualized instructions, which allow for their students to embrace their own learning, their critical thinking, and to experience success by themselves. Additionally, their vision is to celebrate students, families, and staff on who they already are. They support, encourage, and reinforce dreams and goals. Now, I want to talk about my experiences at Benicia Valley. Silence is not an option. That's what I told myself. I am present at Benicia Valley because I want to be a voice, a support system, and or simply a friend to the marginalized communities. Being able to learn about their experiences and practicing unity with them have allowed me to learn not only about their positionality and intersectionality, but also to expand on my own. Finally, I want to talk about unity, or in other words, solidarity. Humans by nature are very individualistic, which results in a different personal identity and powers. But the important thing to remember and recognize is that we should all understand positionality and intersectionality so that we can practice solidarity. To be able to mutually support each other despite our group differences should show us how united we really are as a society. I personally call it AAA, which stands for acknowledgement, allyship, and action. To be able to identify one's social standing, whether you identify as dominant, subordinate, privileged, or not, but also being able to acknowledge it and say that you are either is the first step. The second is to be able to form a unity or an allyship, get involved in the community, and build a relationship with the marginalized communities, and truly observe the differences. Lastly is a call for action, to be able to step up and use your own voice, influence others, or simply create an organization to fight against social injustices. All of these steps allow for our society to slowly and truly be an equal and united form. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.